So we'd like to continue with what is mentioned in Genesis, in Bereshit, as we explained. Many aspects of the episodes related, they deal with the seed that produced the fruit. Because the seeds of what is happening today, in our time, they can be found in this Sefer Yetzirah, as it's called. It's the book which gives us the origins, the seeds, which exist in the past to produce the future. This is the concept of Maaseh Avot Ziman Lebanim. What happened to the forefathers is a type of premonition and also a guidance to what might happen in later generations. And to explain this, we can add an answer to the following question, which I'm going to ask you. What is the major difference between Ivrit, as is spoken today, and in fact the Hebrew language, which is after the Bible, and the language of the Bible? What's one of the major grammatical differences? Well, I mean, some of you know Hebrew, and some of you also know some of the Chumash, and the Nach. There's a basic distinction.
What's the question?
There's a basic grammatical distinction between post-biblical Hebrew until today and the Hebrew of the Tanakh. Getting all the way through the Tanakh. What's the major difference in grammar?
Future, past and present.
Yes. In other words, in modern Hebrew and also in post-biblical Hebrew, how do you describe the past?
Hayiti, Ratzti, Halachti.
And the future?
Ani ilech, ani I.
That's correct. The root halach, so the past is halachti, and the future is eilech. And there's a clear distinction, just present and future. And what about in biblical Hebrew, how is it?
Biblical Hebrew is future is past, I think.
They're reversed. In fact, most of the Balei Diktuk, the grammarians, they say, you shouldn't regard the future tense in the Bible as being future, because generally it refers to the past, but still there's a distinction. The distinction is, they call it the imperfect. They call it perfect and imperfect. One is continuous, and the other one is really past. You know, the famous epithet in Hebrew of Ibn Ezra says like this: He'avar ayin, ve'atzid adayin, v'hove ke'eref ayin, im kein ta'agam minayin. Can any of you translate? The past doesn't exist anymore. The future is not yet. The present is like the wink of an eyelid. So why worry? Most of us, if we worry what's happened, it's terrible, or we brood about it, or we're afraid what's going to happen in the future. And our mind, and sometimes conversation is taken up what's past and what is future. The past doesn't exist anymore. The future we don't really know. And the present is just the moment. So what's you going to worry? Worry about the past and worry about the future. Dagamina, shouldn't worry. Okay, so we have in nearly all languages a clear distinction. And in Hebrew, the Bible, What is it that creates the difference? What is it that translates the past into the future and the future into the past? What is it?
What happened to our forefathers will happen to us.
No, what is it grammatically?
Powerful.
How does it work with? With the how is the past, the future and the past as expressed in the Hebrew of the Bible? A vav. The vav. Because there's a vav. If there's no vav, then it's clear past and clear future. But if there is a vav, the vav changes. It's called a vav hipuch, a revolutionary vav. Yeah? Which creates a revolution. Revolution, the past becomes future, and future becomes past. In other words, the concept of the Bible is that time is a continuum. It goes on and on and on, and through the vav that connects the... What is the literal translation of the word vav?
End.
Means a hook. Vavei amudim is used in the Chumash. Means a hook. It's a hook that connects together the past with the future, because the seeds of the future exist in the past, and that applies specifically to the Tanakh. The Tanakh is a book of prophecy. In every part of the Tanakh, there are indications of the origin which has produced results, the roots which have produced the fruits. So this lies behind the concept also, Masa Botzeman Lebanim. So we find in chapter 15, let's go to this chapter, I'll give an illustration. Chapter 15 is really the first vision described in detail, which is given to Avraham Avinu, and many of the Midrashim say that was his first vision. It may even be given to him already in Choron, early, when he started his campaign. He was age 52, so it might be the first appearance of Hashem to him, in which he was already given the prophecy concerning the exile of Egypt and how they would be redeemed. And then it's also even symbolized by animals which are cut in the middle, and how a smoking oven goes through. So there is in that vision the future of the people of Israel, not only the Egyptian persecution and the redemption, but also the constant persecution of the people of Israel, culminating in the Holocaust. And the Holocaust is the literal translation of Tanu Ashan, Elapidesh, the smoking oven, because that's going to happen before the Mashiach comes. There's also indication there, I'll bring it right to our subject, which we've been discussing. It says there, before Yitzchak and Ishmael were born, so Avraham Avinu is given a promise by Hashem in this deep vision that his seed are going to inherit the whole Middle East, from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates. And we find at the end of Parshat Lech Lecha, a bit later, the time of the Brit, there also, the time of the Brit, when Yitzchak was about to be born, Ishmael was already born, then Yitzchak was about to be born, the prophecy was given. So there, Avraham was told, I am going to give you the land of the Canaan as the 7 nations. It is not mentioned 10 nations. It mentioned a more limited area, the land of Canaan, the 7 nations that occupied Canaan. And that was promised to the specific seed that would come from Avraham. And Avraham still thought, well, we don't yet have the promised son of Yitzchak, but he and Sarah were promised to have that son with the Brit Milah. So Avraham said, well, maybe Ishmael is my successor, but Hashem says, no, you're going to have another son, and he'll be the successor. and then you only have 7 nations, which will belong to you. Here we see what's fulfilled in our day, that the Muslims, who culturally speaking, and to some extent also certain ethnic connections, they connect themselves with Ishmael, and they inhabit the whole of the Middle East. Apart from this small, in comparison, piece of land on this side of the Yarden, which were the 7 nations. And actually at that time, Transjordan was not included. That came later. But even with Transjordan included, it did not include the whole Middle East. So here we have the limitation that the place of the 7 nations, which is this side of the Yarden, that was promised to Avraham Avinu and his particular descendants, that is Yitzchak. And even Yitzchak Yikach Elazar, they're not the totality of Yitzchak's descendants, but only one branch, which was Yaakov, not Esau. But the Middle East is in the hands of the Muslims. So we're given here a picture of what's happening today. And now from this, I want you to see verse 15 in this vision. Because what is Abraham told here? It says in verse 14, you should not think that only the Egyptians who will terrorize, enslave, and even annihilate part of the people of Israel, they're going to be punished for it. They will be punished. But then it says in verse 14, also the nation which will enslave them will I judge, and they will go out with great possessions. So the sages say, what's the gam mean? It means not just Egyptian persecution, but Babylonian persecution, and that of the Greeks and the Medians, and that of the Romans, until today. Whoever wants to eliminate the people of Israel, like Pharaoh did in Egypt, in the end the punishment will come upon them. And as you know, for example, there are many Haggadot already produced, which make a direct parallel also with many archaeological excavations which have revealed aspects of Egyptian enslavement, and they compare it, many of the things, to what happened in the Holocaust. Especially, I would recommend, he was really a great French philosopher, but he was a Jewish philosopher. He kept Judaism also. He knew a lot of Jews. It's called Andre Neher. In fact, I still met him. Last year he came to Israel also. And he wrote a Haggadah, like a Haggadah, where he made a parallel all the way through between Egyptian enslavement and Nazi enslavement. And the truth is, in this passage, they're both mentioned. The Gam includes Shibud Malchuyot. But then it says, what does it say in verse 15? But you, Avraham, you'll go to your forefathers in peace, tikaver b'seiva tova. You'll be buried with a good and beautiful old age. Seiva tova is used for the great nachat, the great feeling of bliss that old grandfathers who reach a very old age and they see their children, their family going in the right path and everything is fine. That's called Seiva Tova. But here it says he'll be buried with Seiva Tova. So you might explain it to refer to before burial. Because when you're buried already, when will you be buried? It's before burial you'll have the Seiva Tova. A person reaches a ripe old age, and then he dies, and only after the death is he buried. What? And before the burial, he's not Seiva Tova. So what does it refer to? So, to understand this, that this is a reference to what we already explained in the previous talk, that there's one aspect which worried Avraham all his life. What was that? It worried him as soon as he was childless and his wife was childless, and they were of an age they couldn't have children. So they said, there's no hope of fulfilling the enormous blessings. Hashem has said a big blessing that we're going to change the world. How can we, if we both are going to die, how can we change the world? In fact, I'll tell you what was specifically difficult. When did Avraham and Sarah begin to make proselytes, to leave aside idolatry, become monotheists, and fulfill the Noachide code? At which point? At which point did the sages say, the 6 days of creation correspond to 6,000 years from Adam until the Mashiach? I'm sure you've heard this. 2,000 years of Torah. 2,000 years, of Tohu Vavohu, of chaos. Chaotic ups and downs with mankind. This was the first 2,000 years. Then 2,000 years of Torah. And then 2,000 years of the days when one can expect the Mashiach. And now we're on Friday afternoon, might say, preparing for the Shabbos of the Mashiach, because it corresponds to the days of creation. So, when did the 2,000 years of chaos stop? And what came afterwards? The 2,000 years of Torah. When did Torah begin? Which time?
It
says at the beginning of Lech Lecha. In Lech Lecha it says that Avram came with his wife, with his nephew Lot, and he says they took with them also et hanefesh asher asu b'charan, the souls that they had made in Choron, where they left Mesopotamia and came to Choron. There they were able to make souls. And with their outreach activities, they were able to megaya them, to bring them to Geirut. But Geirut here meant to fulfill the Noachide code and transform the idolatry into belief in the one God. When did that start? In Choron. When did Avraham and Sarah come to Choron? He was age 52. It's exactly 2,000 years from the creation of Adam, according to the chronology of the Chumash. So the Tohu Vavohu stopped. It didn't stop with Noach and Shem. Why? Because I can't change the world. Not sufficiently strong. And now Avram and Sarah, but they were such individuals that the plan of Hashem was, they've got to found a nation. After the nations were split, he saw the only way to change the world. Individuals can't do it. Not strong enough. Even the son of Noach, Shem, he made a continuity of teaching Torah b'nei Noach, as we found out also in Yerushalayim. That's where he had established his yeshiva. But it wasn't effective. Why? Because it was not an outreach yeshiva. It wasn't a zibitei. It was not yeshiva bali tshuva. Didn't exist. It was a yeshiva. Those who wanted to come could start learning the Noachide code and Cairo monotheism. And there they taught it. They preserved it. But Avraham Avinu was a different person. He was willing to give up his life rather than stop spreading the faith of Hashem in the world. He was almost killed, but Hashem saved him. Why did he save him? Because he saw he could be the progenitor of a nation. So therefore they made Gerul. Now I want to ask, what happened to all those Gerim? What happened to them? Well, we know Eliezer was one of them, fine? But it would appear that he made hundreds, maybe even thousands of Gerim, he together with his wife. We don't find later on that they were good enough. And the Midrash says, why don't we hear more about those Gerim? Because it didn't work. It wasn't good enough. It was, and so Avraham and Sarah, they thought to themselves, the Gerim, they come, and they learn. But obviously, we go out to different places. Everywhere where Avraham went, he put up an altar, but he didn't bring an offering on the altar. The altar was just a means of attracting attention. That's the place from which he called, Vayikra b'shem Hashem Keilulam, to call upon the name of God, who's the God of the universe. And he tried to convince other people. And he was successful, but it was not permanent enough. Those Gerim who came, still the other members of the family continued with the corruption and idolatry, and he wasn't able to change them. Also, he had on his doorstep Sodom and Amorah. He couldn't change them either. Not able to. So, the Gerim were not better than Lot. I mean, Lot was supposed to be a successor, but Lot didn't continue. So therefore, he prayed all the time, let's have a child. So that was the idea. Hagar was a good Gioret. She became a maidservant and accepted the whole Torah of Avraham and Sarai. And she seemed to be very loyal. The daughter of one of the pharaohs. And she rebelled against her culture, accepted Avraham Avinu and Sarai. And she saw Malachim. She had that child, and that child was to be brought up, since Avraham and Sarah had no child of their own. This will be a member of our household, and the son that's born, he must be nurtured to continue. Because we don't have children strongly in our household. The other Gerim, they go off to different places, doesn't last long enough. And even it was shown at the Akedah, that Elazar was able to go up to the mount, he couldn't see the Shekhinah, and also Ishmael couldn't see the Shekhinah. So all the time Avraham was working, maybe Ishmael will do teshuvah. All his life he was thinking of this. He had to drive him out of the house because he was a bad influence, had bad intentions. So therefore here, where is it fulfilled? Tikaveh b'seva tovah. He was worried all the time, even when Yitzchak was there, what's happened to Ishmael? Because he thought, especially when he had to give up Yitzchak. Still, he was also my son, and maybe he can carry the future of changing the world together with Yitzchak. Let them both work together. He mustn't be in the house, let him be elsewhere. But Ishmael, what did he do? When he was growing up, he became more and more. His mother took him a wife from Egypt, and he became the master of gangsters. He's a wild, attacks, and his aim was also to change the world under his dominion. Yador Bakom. They've all got to regard me as their origin, as their prophet. I'm the one. That spirit went into Ishmael. He was given the same blessing almost as Yitzchak. Just like Yitzchak had a son Yaakov given 12 sons to establish a clan which would become the basis for a nation and a community. So also Ishmael was given the same opportunity. Right. He was all given 12 princes coming from him. And he had a lot of power. But during his life, he already was the one who, he was the biggest expert in archery, was used for killing animals, also killing human beings. Why? So where does it say, Tikaveh b'seva tovah? And Midrashim, who go into these traditions deeply, with every nuance of the verses, there's a whole Pirkei de Rebbe Lezer, it's called, whole chapters describing many elements of the development in the time of Ishmael. But what happened? When it came to burying Avraham at his levaya, there it says, who buried him? What does it say? At the end of Parshas Vayero, what does it say? End of Parshas Chayesor, end of last week's Parsha. Who buried Avraham? Vayikbru oto, what does it say? Yitzchak v'Ishmael banav. In other words, Ishmael had loyalty to his father. He reckoned that his father was still his main teacher of certain good values. He looked after him. Even when he had to leave the house, Avram came to visit him to try to keep up the connection according to his prodigy of chesed. So, Chazal say, he did teshuvah. He recognized that after all, the whole argument, Yitzchak and Ishmael, was who's going to inherit not just the physical aspects, but also the spiritual missions of Avraham Avinu. So Ishmael thought, I'll do it with force. I'll do it with power. But in the end, he recognized that the true successor to Avraham was Yitzchak. He was the firstborn. They said, you go ahead. Because he knew, if you take it back to what preceded these descriptions, he knew when Avraham went on the mountain, he couldn't see the Shekhinah. He realized he's not on that level. Yitzchak is a closer level. He's the saint. And I'm the one who believed more in the physical life. But I recognized Yitzchak is my superior. So he did teshuvah. So the word tikaver b'seiva tova, which is to some extent a contradiction, seiva tova comes before the kvura. Because before a person dies, the real nachat came to the spirit of Avraham Avinu only at the actual burial. When he saw Ishmael has been so absent from connection with me for many years, but I see he's ready to recognize that Yitzchak comes first. And I've got to recognize that. And in the end, I will do teshuvah. So that brings him the Seva Tova after the burial. Now I'm going to paraphrase for you this concept developed by one of the most brilliant, more recent commentators on the Chumash, it's the Osameach. There's a shiva named after him. You know, he was a very, very brilliant insight. He says, the Ramban says, when it says at the beginning of the Chumash, God created the world, it says, on Shabbat, vo Shabbat mikol melachto, asher asa Elokim la'asot, which say the Kiddush. Now you find many translations, they say, what's bara mean? To create. And what the root asa mean? To make. Is there any difference in making, creating? The same thing. So I've seen some translators say, the work of Hashem, which He made it to make it. It's just a tautology. Or you say, created to make it. So what's the difference? In meaning. Say it like this. The Ramban, he says, in this word la'asot, we have here the 6 days of creation, which refer to all the days of the world. Because at the beginning of the 6,000 years, then there will be renewed a kingdom, Shalet v'Imtani, a kingdom which will become very strong. And it will come nearer to truth than the others. In other words, the period, which describes the the three sets of the 6,000 years. So it says, in the 6,000 years, La'asot, something's going to happen. There'll be an empire, a large superpower, that will come to truth more than all the other previous powers. In other words, the period which corresponds to the end of the days of Avraham, the Bnei Ishmael will go back to faith in Hashem. Because actually Islam only began just near the beginning of the 6,000 millennia. And it's similarly when it says, he came to Shem. There the Ramban explains his description concerning what happened to the forefathers is a sign of what happened to the children. And Shem was one of the central points of the future kingdom of Am Yisrael and its problems. So then it says, in those times, the Bedouins of the Middle East will separate themselves from idolatry. As the Rambam says, it is teshuvah. He says, I'll tell you, where does the Rambam say it explicitly? That there's a section at the end of the Ara Chazakah, Mishneh Torah of the Rambam, which was, for understandable reasons, the censors, they took it out. Because we know a lot of the early prints of the Gemara and the Rambam, the Catholic Church had decreed that you're not allowed to print anything which they interpreted to be critical of Christianity. So therefore, you find there's even, there's a Mishnah which speaks about the Arba Minim. What are the Arba Minim? What are they, the Arba Minim? The four species? What mitzvah does that refer to? Lulav Nesu, four species. But some of the censors didn't really know the difference. They employed different people to go and make censorship. There's an early print of the Mishnah, because min also means a heretic, and was often used to refer to Christians. Even today, when we say the extra brocha lam al shinem, there are many different versions, because that was introduced also when there were a lot of minim, and the minim were often heretics that belonged to early Christianity. So in the Siddur they changed it so that they were able to print the Siddurim. Therefore they put Malshinim, which are Jews who give over the secrets of the Jewish people to the superpowers, or whichever powers they have, the Christian power, the powers, to go and rob them and so on. Okay, so against them, it's okay. So there's a Mishnah which came out, Abba Minim, they put Abba Akumim. Okay? Abba Akumim. And Abba Akumim they allowed because it means of day, Kochavim or Mazalot. In other words, but they didn't mind if there was a reference in any Jewish text to the removal of heathenism, worshipping idols. But min was not allowed. Anyway, so it says here that the Muslims used to worship idols before they were Muslims, the Bedouins. So there, in the uncensored version, the Rambam says like this. He says when the true Mashiach will come, and he becomes successful, they will immediately leave aside their religion and they recognize that the Mashiach from the Jews, following the whole Torah, he's the right one. They do teshuvah. So Ishmael will do teshuvah early. So the same thing is what Yitzchak took it upon himself also to follow the same pattern, like Avraham. He hoped, look, the Rivka, they gave birth to the twins. And therefore his prayer was, Esav Yuchan Rasha. In other words, even if Esav goes far away from Avodah Zarah, far away from the true service of Hashem, and even serves idols, but his tefillah was constantly that maybe his wildness can be used to serve Hashem. And also at the end of days, he will also do teshuvah, which will happen by Yom Muyah, Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. It says, a prayer of Yitzchak, Yuchan Rasha, Ba'al Lamed, Tzedek Ba'aretz, Nechot Yi'ul, U'Ba'al Yeroen, Geut Hashem. So Chazal say, the time when Yitzchak said to Esav, I've given the blessings to Yaakov, and what can I give you? So Yitzchak said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yuchan, let Esav be given grace from above. So Hashem said, but he's a Rosha. So Yitzchak said, Baal made Tzedek. Isn't it true that he honored his parents? He was great in Kibbutz Avraham, even more than Yaakov. So Hashem said, but in future, he's going to try and destroy the Beit HaMikdash. So Yitzchak said, at least give him a lot of success in this world. And in the future, that's why I said, that's why I was able to give him the blessing that all the fatness of the earth should be your dwelling place. That's what we're going to happen. In the future, as it said, on that day there'll be a time where Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad, when Hashem will be recognized by all the Christians also. And they recognize His truth when the Mashiach will come, as described by the Rambam in the Hills Melachim. So, in any case, our prayer today, where we see maybe this is a fulfillment of these early seeds, especially as we find that the four kingdoms described in more detail in the visions, both of Yechezkel, and then of Daniel, and the other prophets, that there were big superpowers with their dictators who want to control the world, and they want to thereby, together with this, eliminate the people of Israel. And in the end, they were destroyed. But in the end of days, so it's described, when the Malchut of Ishmael will even battle with the Malchut of Esav, and there'll be battles taking place in Eretz Israel, but in the end, it will lead to the nations of the world gathering together. And in fact, we can even connect directly the 10 men referred to with regard to Sodom. Sodom was such a corrupt, anti-chesed, therefore it's anti-Hashem society. It had to be burnt. But if there would have been 10 innocent people, they would have been saved. And the Prophet Zephaniah says, in the end of days, there will be 10 people from each of the 70 languages who will come as representatives. They will come to Yerushalayim to participate in at least to witness the temple service, and they'll ask the Jews, please, teach us your ways. And they'll want to join. So 10 is like the minimum of a society. Society will change, bit by bit, minyan by minyan, until, as we say in the Aleinu, final prayer, if we will keep to our level of Kedusha, that's what it says in the first part of Aleinu, we will constantly praise Hashem and feel close to Him and fulfill our separate tasks of Kedusha, then we can become a Melechet Kohanim. Then become a kingdom of priests. If we do inreach in Kedusha, reach a high level, you can even say the high level of the mountain, and we envisage the Shekhinah close to us, by us coming close to Him. So time will come when the nation, the world, will all change. And then war and trouble and the greed of man will not be destructive. And instead of learning warfare, they learn how to live in peace. And let's hope we see it in our time.